Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the United States Secretary of State Michael R. Pompeo, escorted by United States Senator Tom Cotton and Fred Ryan, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute.
That's what I thought.
Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this very special event at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. I'm Fred Ryan, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here this evening. As has long been the tradition at the Reagan Presidential Library, we begin our events with the Pledge of Allegiance, so would you please rise and join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated.
There's no comma between.
We're delighted to have a number of special guests with us this evening. From the Reagan Library Board, Ambassador Robert Tuttle, Robert Day and his wife Marlon, Ben and Sally Sutton, and Governor Pete Wilson and Gail Wilson. And Governor Wilson will join us after the Secretary's remarks to ask questions and answers. Also joining us this evening is a well-known star of television, stage, and screen, Suzanne Summers, and her husband, Ellen Hamill. Thank you for joining us. And although my role tonight is to do the formal introduction of our speakers, there's an additional person who's here tonight who I want to acknowledge and is someone who I hold in the highest regard and admiration. He's a colleague of mine from the Washington Post, and you may know his story. 4 years ago today, as our bureau chief in Iran, his door was kicked down in the middle of the night, and he and his wife were taken to Tehran's notorious Evin prison. His wife was held in solitary confinement for 72 days. And he was held for 544 days in the most deplorable conditions you can imagine before we were able to secure his release. I'm so proud that he's back at the Washington Post doing his job and that he has traveled far to be with us tonight. Please welcome Jason Rezaian and Bobby. Well, as we begin the program tonight, there's a special guest I'd like to introduce, and we're delighted, as you can see, to have Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton with us this evening. In May of this year, Senator Cotton said of Mike Pompeo, quote, "He has a deep understanding of world affairs, a clear-eyed view of the threats to our national security, and key relationships with world leaders, all which make him an excellent choice to be our top diplomat." That coming from a senator with a broad worldview himself. Senator, would you mind saying a few remarks? Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Fred, thank you for those very kind words, and thank you all for the warm welcome. It's an honor to be here at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation Library, especially with my old friend, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. I've known the Secretary for as long as I've been in public life. Longer, really. He was the first congressman outside of Arkansas to call me in my first race and offer his support. We became fast friends in the House of Representatives, not least because we took some lonely stands together in those days. Here's a lesson I learned back then that's important for each of you and for the Iranian people. When Mike Pompeo stands with you, you'll never stand alone. As members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, the Secretary and I traveled the world together. On one trip, we discovered the secret side deals that Iran had made with the International Atomic Energy Agency. There and elsewhere, I saw him in action with world leaders. I will simply say, his performance in those meetings did not immediately make me think, this man is destined to be our nation's top diplomat. But top diplomat he is now. And there's another lesson for you. Mike Pompeo will tell plain truths to friend and foe alike. And to my fellow citizens here tonight, and to the brave Iranians who will also hear us, you should know that in Secretary Pompeo you have a friend and you have a champion. He will speak tonight about the diplomatic, economic, and military pressure that America is placing on Iran. Congress supports these initiatives. That's why I have legislation to expose the ill-gotten wealth of senior regime officials and to prohibit Iranian officials who take American hostage, including their relatives, from entering the United States. But Secretary Pompeo also knows the noble aspirations of the Iranian people to live in freedom and with not only a moral concern, but also a strategic imperative for the United States in our efforts to constrain this outlaw regime. The courage we have witnessed in the streets of Iran over these last several months both inspires us and strengthens these efforts. The Ayatollahs crave legitimacy, but the Iranian people will never give it to them. And the United States will not confer it as long as Mike Pompeo is our Secretary of State.